All right, we got a real special one here today, everybody. Welcome back to the Designated Players Podcast, Season 3. Oh, I didn't put the 2 on the board. Episode 32. There we go.
Nice.
We have
professional podcast.
Very professional. Very. We have a very, very unique and special guest here. The first time ever we have reached out to one of our fans on Twitter and one of our what I like to think best person that we've interacted with since we started our podcast, Patrick White. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing great, guys. Glad to be on the show today. Big fan.
Yeah. We appreciate you being here. We were talking about this earlier, but we've been trying to get this done for months now. We're super happy that we were able to get it scheduled and get it running. We are talking all things CF Montreal today, from back in the day, how we got started, how they've grown into the club that they are. Certain individuals that probably, if they were healthy, would be starting in tonight's men's national team match. We'll be talking a lot about him, a lot more about kind of the interaction between Bologna and Montreal, how Montreal is viewed. We're going to go into all things Montreal today. So if you enjoy that, make sure you leave a like, you share it, and get everybody to watch it, because this is going to be a fantastic episode. Before we do that, of course, we always go to Scarf of the Week. I know, Patrick, you don't have any, but I know you're rocking 2 different crests here.
Yeah, I am. The original one and the new one that's already been replaced.
Do you have plans to get the third one?
Yeah, probably.
Nice.
I'd like to get, players on the back. I would get Djordje if he's around next year, but I don't think he will be. But we can get into that in a bit here.
Yeah, we definitely will. Connor, what are you rocking?
Well, I'm on the bandwagon for this episode. I've got my Montreal scarf.
Nice.
Granted, it's the old logo, so it's the Impact, but
Very nice.
no problems with that. It's a great logo.
I do have a 3 lines scarf somewhere, but I couldn't find it.
Nice. That's a good one.
So I guess more MLS would have been appropriate, though.
Before I show this, I want to know that this is all Connor's idea. I had a Red Bull.
This is not my idea.
I did not have a Montreal scarf yet. I have plans to get one, but I had a Red Bull scarf, and Connor was like, "Oh, you should break out the other one."
No, so you brought it up.
We brought out.
Oh no!
The
TFC
scarf.
I think I might just disconnect right now.
Man, Connor, I didn't want to. I was like, listen, this is not how I want to do this. And Connor's like, no, you should definitely do it. It'd be great. I'm like, this is gonna be terrible, but it's Connor's idea. He's the devil on the shoulder, so I had to break it out.
That's all right. They're not very good this year. So.
No, they're not. Like I said, I like Montreal way better than I like TFC, especially after the 2017 playoff run. So I'm all on your side, but Connor said I had to bring it out. I could have brought out Vancouver, but does anybody actually care about Vancouver? I don't think so, right?
If they're not from Vancouver, they don't really, I don't think.
Right. That's kind of, oh man, we're getting our shots.
No, they're like, they're probably the, most neglected team out of the 3 for sure.
Yeah.
There's like a daily podcast here in Canada. If you heard of it, Soccer Today.
I have heard of that.
Yeah, of Kevin Laramie and Dwayne Rollins. They mostly talk about CF Montreal and TFC, and here and there, they'll throw in some Whitecaps news if it's relevant. Sure.
2 questions that I had right off that I got to keep myself like limited on my off script questions.
No problem.
Thoughts on the 3rd rebrand? Like, how do we feel about going through all of these rebrands?
Well, I think they probably should have done this one last year. To me, the last president, Kevin Gilmore, and the advertising guy, Justin Kingley, they didn't get it. They didn't get the team. They didn't know the history. They kind of wanted to start new. They wanted to give themselves more of like a international flavor to the team to try and gain fans abroad. But that's not how it works, man. You got to win the market first, which is still a bit of a problem, and since they did that, the stadium, I think our biggest crowd this year has been like 15,000 people and a 20,000 people stadium. It's just not good enough, and a lot of them have been felt alienated because they kind of forgot the history. This new logo, like, what I think it looks good on a hat, but like they tried to like represent Montreal. I know you got like the M with the arrow, which is like our metro sign here.
Oh,
And
cool.
and so they tried to like incorporate Montreal elements and stuff like that, which was a good idea. But again, they just completely forgot about the history of the club, like the Fleur de Lis, the French and all that. And like, thank God we eliminated Club de Foot. So it's just CF, so Club de Football makes a lot more sense. Club de Foot is like, what the hell is a club foot? Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I like the new logo. They kind of went back to the roots. The shield and the circle. The Fleur de Lis is there. The stripes. So I think we'll go back to the black and blue striped jersey next year, hopefully, because that was probably my favorite one out of all the jerseys we had. This was pretty nice, but the black and blue stripes are the best for sure.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
also the Ultra is one of the main supporters group. The guys that sing the loudest in the stadium have not been back since they were banned last year. But the ban has been lifted, but they're still not happy because they want the name Impact to come back. But I mean, Joyce Saputo made clear, name is CF Montreal, but all the other elements have come back, and even like there are different points about what the club means, spelt Impact, and they're probably going to have all the supporters on one side, and it's going to be the Impact section. So I mean, besides that, what else do you want? Like, I hope they come back because it really makes a big difference to the atmosphere.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree there. The other thing, and like I said, I can go on and talk again, but I want to try and keep it not 4 hours long, because we can do that. We have done it.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. But the other thing, how is the Canadian Premier League viewed over there? So I've seen a lot more social media kind of blowing up a little bit. And I know Joel Waterman, for example, was one of their first transfers out. Is it a lot like US? Is that a lot like USL over here, or is it a little bit more separate?
I think the level is probably more like USL 1.
Okay.
Like not the highest one, maybe like a notch below. But it's a lot of young players. We have a draft out of the Canadian universities. But what I like is that we've loaned quite a few players out, and a couple of them are doing pretty well. Like our goalkeeper, Sirois, and Sean Rea, who I think is probably going to be the heir apparent to Djordje in a couple of years.
I have heard that. Yep.
Yeah, they're both playing in Winnipeg, and I don't know if you saw the goal that Sean Rea scored a couple of weeks ago. He like chipped the goalkeeper from like, I don't know, 40 yards out.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty incredible. So
yeah, just two things that came up as soon as we hit record. Like, man, we got to ask about that, because I think the Canadian Premier League has a ton of potential
for
sure. That
exact
reason, right? Being almost that second level for those teams, but also growing into its own entity, right? So you've got Pacific, who are creating a very good name for themselves in Champions League and their own CPL themselves. Actually, it got
Hamilton too.
What's that?
The Forge. Hamilton,
yes, the Forge as
Forge
well.
FC.
Yep. You had, what was his name? Luke McNaughton, who came to TFC from that same thing. And I wasn't super impressed because, again, I didn't know a lot about him. I think he's been, for a bad TFC team, he's been relatively decent coming from a completely different level. I could see a lot of really good potential coming out of that league at some point.
Well, I heard you guys earlier in the season dumping a little bit on Joel Waterman, but he's probably our most improved player. And I think he's probably been our most consistent defender this year. He's looked really good. Really good.
Let me then transition into one of the questions we wanted to ask today, because it is not a question, and I promise I will let Connor talk at some point.
Sure.
I'll think about it. He does have really bad comments like 95% of the time, but I'll let him get some hit. At the start of the season, obviously you were in Champions League. It wasn't a brilliant start. We were talking a lot about players who just had not stepped up to the plate. I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about what or who, as you mentioned, Joel Waterman, has changed in this system or this team that has gotten them to a point where they are impressing in the Eastern Conference.
Well, gotta say, at the beginning of the season, we had quite a bit of injuries, and playing on two tables with a lot of injuries is not ideal. Right, we had Sam Piet was out. Mason Toy is still out, but he should be back after the break. We had a couple of defenders out as well. Alistair Johnson didn't have a great start to the season, but he's finally settling in now. But I really think once they were eliminated from Champions League, playing once a week, they're really able to start, playing their style, playing in the system. And Djordje Mihailovic is a changed player this year. Even the first game, I took a look at him and like, wow, this guy, he put on some muscle this year. He looks a lot stronger than he did last year, and I think that's pretty important. And he's just been braver on the ball. He's been attacking the defense. He's been taking more shots. Making runs, making late runs into the box. I just wish he could be a little bit more dominant in taking over the games. I don't really think we have a guy that can really take over the game like a Nico Ladero or Almiron back in the day or anything like that, which I think is what we might be missing to really make like a MLS Cup run.
Yeah, I would definitely agree on like the Champions League. As soon as that wrapped up, that was like the turning point, and things just like clicked, and the teams just, it looked like a completely different team on the field. And I think Montreal's been like one of, if not the hottest team in the league since that point. So I definitely agree. I think dropping down and having less on the plate helped a ton.
Absolutely. And also, they've been playing the same style for about 3 years. It all started with Henry a couple of years ago, and then last year with Wilfred Nancy kind of had the continuity, and this year, third year, kind of playing the same way. They got mostly the right players playing the right positions, so it's kind of all come together right now at the right time. But we're still missing some elements, in my opinion, to really be like a real contender.
Yeah, totally can understand that. All right, maybe since we had the transition into that first question, maybe we'll take a step back and probably start with where we probably should have
started, right?
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your story with Montreal and how you became a fan.
Well, I started following in the 2009 Canadian Championship. It was like, I think it was one of the first actual Voyageurs Cup tournament, I believe. And Montreal was able to win that. They drew TFC, they beat Whitecaps, and then they were able to make it to the Champions League. We all remember the game or the series against Santos Laguna. They beat them 2-0 at home at the Olympic Stadium, and then the epic collapse in Santos Laguna. We're up 2-1 on we're up 4-1 on aggregate, and ended up losing 5-4. Or no, we ended up losing 5-4 on aggregate. And they scored 3 of those goals, and like 2 of the goals in stoppage time, and it's pretty devastating. But at the same time, for an NASL team to hold their own and have the lead for a good amount of time against a League MX team, I think it was a great accomplishment. And that's really what got me into them. And then I really started following every game when they joined the MLS. Or MLS, not the.
Somebody caught it. Connor still makes that mistake sometimes, which is
totally. I never make that mistake
do.
ever.
There's a whole backstory behind that one that we could dive into later. We did say we're going to mention a certain U.S. international, Djordje Mihailovic, and we know that he is blowing up this season. He had offers, I think, to move this summer that weren't really concrete, but there were rumors. And he is playing out of his skin this season. Outside of the kind of like the physical change, what has he done specifically, or what has the system done for him? If there's been a different change in the system,
right,
that has let him play at this immense level, like U.S. men's national team call-in level.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Greg Berhalter told them, if you want to be part of the national team, you got to score more goals. And obviously, he's got 7 goals. So I think he's tied for like 3rd or 4th in the Golden Boot race. So that's one thing. Like I said, he's making more late runs into the box, pretty much tapping it into wide open cages. He's attacking the defense. He's got better footwork, I find. He's able to dribble a little bit more than he was last year. He's got the drive. He really wants to win. And I think that he's a real competitor, and it's really showing this year. Even though I find he's kind of tailed off in the last couple of games before his injury, but I think he's really real key to our success this year. Even though he's playing a bit more on the left side, I'd like to see him a bit more central to help set up guys a bit more, which has been a little bit less this year. But I think when Mason Toy comes back, they'll probably go back to the 3-5-2 with Djordje in the middle and two strikers up front.
Yeah. I mean, I think it almost helped him a little bit playing a little bit wider, because that's kind of Greg. I think that's probably where he would fit in Greg's system.
Yeah, probably.
Is kind of like that wide center midfielder type of role where you're creating from the flanks, right? There's very little central creation in Greg's system. It's
That's
a lot.
Pulisic's system. That's Pulisic's position, though, right? So he'd be like second fiddle behind him.
Yeah. I would see him playing that same Pulisic role in Nations League. I think he would go into this Granada game that's playing at 10 o'clock tonight, which, wow, I forgot that was happening tonight. He would go ahead and fill that same role and do it brilliantly. I think it is a great fit for him. And I remember reading the news that he was pulling out because of injury, and I sent it to Connor, and I almost cried, because we've been calling for him to be in for months, and he finally gets in and bang. Injury.
Yeah, well, he started practicing again this week and is looking a lot better. So hopefully his ankle injury is not too serious, because like ankle injuries can linger for a while, which is what happened with Piet at the beginning of the season. He was supposed to be out a couple of weeks. It was out 3 months.
Well, yeah, maybe Djordje can start up top for us at striker. I mean, he can't do worse than the current guys
or maybe more like a false 9 role.
Right? I mean, that would
be fun. False 9, USMNT false 9.
Yeah,
we've talked about that one.
A la Barca, Messi days at first.
We've been talking about who's gonna put the ball away for the men's national team, and nobody. Right now it's nobody. So anybody who wants
that's
to fill
what's
a false
missing
9.
for you guys. You guys could, you guys could be the best team in CONCACAF if you had a legitimate striker.
Yep. Yeah, do we know it?
Yeah.
If I see Jesus Ferreira put one more ball into the 7th row from 4 yards out, I think I might just stop watching.
And that's the one thing that Canada is not missing is attack.
Oh my gosh, Jonathan David.
Who has not been great for Canada so far.
He hasn't, but Kyle Laren's also been fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. So, anyways, we beat who did we beat? Curacao 4-0 last night. So
yeah,
that was a good win for us for sure.
All right, so staying on the Djordje topic, obviously with his big rise this season, he's garnered a lot of interest overseas in Europe. Do you think he will be sold? And if so, at what point in the season do you think? Do you think he'll be sold in the summer, or would it be until the end of the season?
If he is sold in the summer, I think he has to be loaned back and finish the season here, because I really do think we have a chance to make a run. And without Djordje, those chances are greatly diminished. Even though, we have Miljevic, who looked good in the Canadian Championship. He was totally dominant, him and Sunusi Ibrahim. He's kind of also supposed to be the heir apparent to Djordje, but they're different style of players, One's Argentinian, a bit more shifty, does, good movement, good passes, but he's got to mature a little bit and probably get a little bit stronger. I think he could fill in, but we would probably still be a playoff team, I think, but we would not be top 4 or top 3 like we are right now. But if he gets sold in the summer, he has to finish the season. That's like absolute must. And I know there's been rumors about Leeds, Dortmund, maybe a couple of, I think Roma was mentioned, or AC Milan, I'm not sure which one. But I don't want to see him go to Bologna, because we'll get nothing if he goes to Bologna. But would the MLS let that happen? A homegrown player being transferred to a European team for nothing? I don't know. Right?
It's MLS. Anything roster related for MLS, you never will know. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Well, it happened to Chris Mueller. He left for nothing.
Yeah. And also Louis Binks was our defender, probably our best defender a couple years ago.
Yep.
He left mid-season last year, didn't even play a game because he was hurt, and then he got healthy and went to Bologna, and he's barely played. So
Yeah. Just a note on Sanusi Ibrahim. He came on and played against Red Bull. I think it was one of his first appearances, and I was like, this dude's gonna be a baller one day. I really like the way he plays.
He's 19, he's short, but he's built like a tank.
Yes, he's massive. Yeah, he's gonna be something special one day. Very, very big fan. So we talked about kind of where you want him to go. What's his price tag? What are you okay with letting him go for?
Well, he's valued on transfer market at 6.6 million euros. So I think anything under that, like under 5 million, would be disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
I think he could go for more, especially if he gets sold at the end of the season. And let's say he wins MLS MVP, then he could go for 7, I think. But I'm no expert when it's. I don't know, right? I mean, yeah, if he wins MLS MVP, and let's say he finishes with 15 and 15, yeah, maybe. But he's also 24 or 23, turning 24, so he's not the youngest anymore. He's still a young player, but the guys out of MLS are going for big price tags are usually a little bit younger than him.
Right. Well, that was the thing we were actually talking about this last week was what do MLS players, what type of value do we get out of them now, right? You saw Pepe go for 18 mil. You saw Buxa go for 10 just last week. What I almost am wondering what they would expect to get for him. Again, it all depends on how he finishes the season. If he has a second half of the season the same way he had the first, I would push for a double-digit transfer. Whether they get it or not, I don't know, but I would try and get as close as I could. I think he has that ceiling where he can be successful, and in today's market where you've got people going for all sorts of silly money, 10 mil in MLS would be a massive transfer for us as a group, but also a respectable number.
Because that's kind of the goal, right? Is to buy low, sell high. And the more you sell, then the higher that low can become.
Correct. Yeah.
Which is what the goal is. Sorry, guys, I just got to plug in. Otherwise, I'm going to die here.
When I tell you that's probably every other episode for me, which, depending on how long this takes, it might be this one too.
No problem.
Well, I will say the only thing I would be concerned about, and I feel like I've seen it with a few teams, like NYC, for example, is setting a price too high and then not having teams reach it and potentially watching the value of the player go down. Like, I don't know if they're going to get, if like NYC would get the level of money that I feel like we once heard rumored with Tati. I'm not saying that will happen in this case, but it's just something that I've seen a few MLS teams do. So it's just something I'm a little concerned about when I see like star players on teams looking to make a move to Europe.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's made it clear that is his goal, to make it to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like maybe Leeds would make sense because the American connection. Yeah, you just got Aronson that went there. I just don't know how much he would play. So maybe like more Bundesliga team, like maybe Dortmund or Leipzig, or might be a better fit for him, even though they haven't really been rumored. But maybe a team like that, or maybe Leeds could work because they're mid lower table team. So maybe he would get playing time, but that's what he needs, right? He needs to go somewhere where he's gonna get playing time if he really wants to become a fixture on the U.S. men's national team.
For sure. So we'll move on here, and just one of my questions that I always wondered about was, how is CF Montreal seen in Montreal, right? Obviously, you talk about having the Habs around there, and that is a historic hockey franchise. But I know that Montreal also has a very decent following as well. Are they overshadowed? Is it like a second-hand team? What is the feel over there? What's the vibe?
Right. There's a lot of Euro snobs here. And they kind of view the MLS, or they kind of view MLS as like not the top league, right? Even though I think it's a top 10 league in the world now, probably. it's improved so much. But a lot of people are like, oh, like it's not the best league. We like watching the best leagues in the world, but that's not how football works. Every country has their own league, right? And yeah, a lot of guys, they'll follow the local team and they'll follow a bigger club. Who says, you got to follow your local team. That's what bothers me, because we have like about 4.5 million people in the greater Montreal area. A lot of football fans, a lot of European imports, a lot of people of Italian, English, French blood, that are big football fans or soccer fans. And I think they should get into it. And it bothers me that they kind of look down on it. But for sure, they kind of play second fiddle to the Habs, especially in the mainstream media. And actually, the mainstream media that covers CF Montreal took a big blow on TSN 69, English language sports radio here. One of the main, like the midday host guy, he would spend a lot of time talking about them, and he just left the station to focus more on his podcast. So they really took a hit in the coverage in English for sure. But it was different when we had Drogba. When we had Drogba, they'd be talking about him all day, not all day, every day, but daily, in the traditional media. So maybe like a big star would help, but that's not what I want. If we're going to get another DP, I'd prefer like an Almiron type guy, like a younger player, maybe on loan, or even Piatti. Nobody knew who Piatti was when he came here, and he became one of the best players. Even though he's not a top 100, I think he was one of the best players in MLS history.
I put Piatti top 100.
Yeah, and he wasn't in the MLS's official list top 100.
That the people who write for MLSsoccer.com usually are missing many brain cells, so I wouldn't look too far into it. But easily I'd put him top 100.
No, for sure.
We're gonna just pencil that down. Future episode idea.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
But I wondered that because it's the same thing, right? Red Bull, NYC, even NYC won the MLS Cup last year, and they didn't even get a spot in the local papers, like the local newspapers.
Stadium.
They need a stadium,
right?
But then you circle back, right? You win a major trophy, you don't get any coverage for it outside of like a 50-person parade or whatever. It was COVID time, so I'm not gonna take too much into that. But then you wrap it around, and 6 months later you go back to Yankee Stadium, they give you a banner the size of this little square right here. It's like that's it. And again, I have no problem with them looking silly, right? I don't like them. But for the league as a whole, from a neutral standpoint, that's terrible. And that's all over the country is the coverage isn't there because of your Eurosnobism, right? You've got too many people who are like, this league, because they don't watch it and they refuse to learn, so they just think that it's a retirement league. They think the level is bad. And granted, we aren't at that level. I get it. We're not at the Premier League, the Bundesliga level, right? But we had posted a TikTok about where MLS ranks, and we got tons of interaction on it saying some of them were defending it, right? Maybe we're top 15, which I think is a relatively legitimate place to be. And others were like, you're not even top 50. Like there are 37 Euro leagues that are better than you. And I'm like, if you could give me any example of that, I would love to. Right.
I think they were ranked. It was ranked the 8th most entertaining league in the world to watch.
Correct. Somebody actually came on and mentioned, like, if you're talking about parity and entertainment, we are second to none. Mm-hmm. We have different teams winning it every year outside of like the LA Galaxy dynasty. And you've got
Seattle,
right? But you've got massively exciting games every week, right? This might be the year for the most part where I've seen the most 0-0s. Like when we were still in the spot where we were streaming, which we're going to get back to eventually, but we would always get one of the last games of the week, and every time we stream, we would get the only 0-0 of the week.
No.
So whenever we were watching the schedule, we're like, okay, we've got 30 minutes in this game that's 0-0 left before we stream. It has to end 0-0 or we're getting the game. Yeah. I mean, there were weeks that we had like 2 or 3 0-0s in a row, and that was like a massive number, right? You look at the Premier League or any other Euro league, it's like 1-0 is your normal game. And the level of goals that we're scoring are way better than most in Europe.
Bangers, right? Every week.
Look at Red Bull. Red Bull dropped 3 goal of the week candidates in one game against DC. Like, that's unbelievable. And they don't do it just because we don't spend $100 million on players, right? Because they can't accept that low price can still be good. And that, we talk about eventually we need to, and we won't dive too far into this. We did a whole episode on this already, but we need to loosen restrictions on spending eventually. And we're getting there. Every once in a while we're jumping up and we're getting there. But
I get rid of the GAM and TAM designated players, make the salary cap, like let's say 25 million or something like that. I think, and the floor maybe 15 million. That's what I would like to see. I think they'll get there eventually. But apparently the owners like the whole concept of GAM and TAM. It's so complicated to explain to fans. I have no idea what a lot of these rule mechanisms actually work, and I think that turns some people off where they can't really know how much a team is spending, because it's all pretty ambiguous. And then you got that discretional TAM that certain teams spend because out of the owner's pocket and some don't. So I don't know, it's so weird.
Yeah, the roster rules are definitely a turnoff for a lot of people, right? Because you're trying to follow it. And I've had people who are like, yeah, I've tried to follow, but I don't understand anything about it. And again, this was back in 2015. 2015 and 2022 MLS are two completely different leagues.
No, totally.
But there is always that thing that was like, well, how am I signing players? Why am I not spending all this money? Like, well, you need to have a designated player spot. What's that? And you go explain that. Like, oh, well, why do you only have 3 of those? Well, you have to explain, like, you can buy it down. And once you say too many words, they're just, all right, I'm done with it. I'm just going to go watch Man City.
Well, why would they listen? Yeah, when they could just go watch the Prem.
I'm going to watch Man City beat up on Burnley 5-0 again because that's what makes me happy. Like,
Burnley got relegated.
Yeah. Again, I think it's a little boring watching the same 3 teams win every year, personally. That's just me. And again, even MLS, we mentioned Seattle and LA, right? Even during their run, Seattle has been the best franchise, and we've had this argument, probably the best franchise in modern MLS, right? Take away like 2015 forward.
They're the model team, right? They got it all. They got a great academy. They got a good core of North American players, and they got 3 DPs that really make a difference.
Absolutely. And even they aren't winning back to back, right? They're getting there, but they're not winning, right? So even then it's like, okay, there's still enough where it's like, these games are not like, oh man, I can't. I said, this was the most exciting Premier League finish in 4 years because it actually went down to the last day. For the most part, it's decided a month before it's over.
Yeah, like City's been winning it a couple of weeks before. Same thing with Liverpool when they won a couple of years ago, I believe.
Yep. And even the relegation battles are pretty much decided outside of the last day, right? Like there's a difference there, and you have to appreciate it. And a lot of people don't appreciate it because they've only grown up one way. So I get it. I just don't like it.
No, I get it for sure.
There's argument. I mean, we could go into our whole discussion on like the different league formats. I mean, there's arguments both ways to it. Like I could definitely see someone making an argument and being like, oh, look at the Chicago Fire this year. Like, what do they have to play for at this point? Like, they could just sack every game for the rest of the season, and there's no consequence for it.
That's true. And that's something that Djordje Drogba said when he came here. Is like, he said, like, I hate to lose, and here losing is not that big of a deal because you have playoffs, right? So
I always mention that mindset just needs to be shifted, right? Everybody talks about pro rel and like the negativity of losing so many that you would get relegated, right? There's not enough money in the league to make people care either way, right? But the focus, like that deadline or that last day, that push for relegation, promotion, or whatever, you just shift that up 4 spots in MLS, and now you're looking at the race for the playoff spot. Completely different, right? Because at the end of the day, you're still going to be in the same league or whatever. But it's the same idea, right? You're pushing to make a playoff, right? The thing that gets me is LA versus Real Salt Lake. Was it last year? Maybe 2 years ago? I think it was last year. Where Demir Frye hits a bicycle kick in the 95th minute to knock LA out of the playoffs again. 3 years in a row they've done it. Yeah. Like that's unbelievable. Like that's amazing. A couple
of years ago, when we were playing New England in the play-in, I think it was Boo scored in stoppage time to eliminate it. It was heartbreaking,
Right, and you always find that pain and that, like, because people are like, oh, you never feel anything when you lose, like you said, Drogba, right? If you're invested in a team enough, you will feel things until you cannot feel things, which is where I'm at with Red Bull. When Red Bull lose, great, here we go again. But like I said, from 2011 up to 2019, when we were 20, I'll use 2018, right before we kind of cleaned house, and we were supposed to win like 4 MLS Cups in that point because of our team, and we just kept losing and losing. Yeah, with Jesse Marsh, it broke my heart.
Yeah, that was nice. So when we knocked you guys out there in the 2016 or 2017, I think it was.
I think it was 2016. 2017 right. We got to, or maybe 2015. I think 2017 we got through and lost to Toronto.
Yeah, no, 2016 we lost to TFC in the conference finals.
Yes. I'm like I said, my least fond memory of Montreal is last year's game with the Coronel penalty saves. That got
3 penalty kicks.
Like, are we kidding? And he almost made the save on the third one too.
He kept doing the same thing, and the coach was just like, couldn't believe it. It was so funny.
So I'm a goalkeeper, or I was a goalkeeper back when I was still athletic. That was that made me scream. I was so mad because I get that it's in the rules. It sucks. Like the referees were doing their job and they did it right, but it just sucks.
Yeah, for sure. That's the rule. You can't jump off the line. That's why a lot of goalkeepers start behind the line so they can jump up. Yeah. It still hurts me today. It's a tough one.
I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, when you had mentioned your affiliation with Bologna. We kind of wanted, I think you gave us a little bit of an insight into your thoughts, but is there anything else in terms of Bologna and the relationship between the two teams that you would like to share, other than the fact of selling people to them and getting no money?
Yeah, well, I mean, we did get a few good players. We got Djordje Mihailovic a couple of years ago as the Swiss international. He had a great half season, but then he had some family situation, you always see him like yelling at everybody, and it was kind of funny. And then went back to Bologna. So then we got Safir Taider, who came in and he played well for us. He was just terrible at free kicks, and he always take free kicks. And, now we have Lassi Lapalainen and Gabriel Corbo. Corbo's looked really good in the few games he's played. He's a young guy. He's like 21, central defender. But he's looked good when he's played. Lassi Lapalainen has been converted kind of like a wing back. And he's improving. It's just he's getting clear looks and just missing the net, which bothers me a lot. And he's cleaned up his defense. So I think they could use Bologna again to bring in maybe another DP, like let's say signs of Bologna for a year and then comes to MLS. I think they could maybe exploit that a little bit more. Probably to kind of circumvent the salary cap in a way.
Yeah, we talked about that last episode about this almost like MLS had on paper it was such a good idea. Let's partner with Euro teams and get more talent in the league, and it's just turned into a bunch of poaching of like I said, as a Red Bull fan, right? Just poaching our best players. And outside of last season, really was the only time that we got something from them. There was never hey, here is we're going to take Tyler Adams from you, but here is another really young, promising player that you can do the same thing with, right? Last year was the only time we got anybody from there, and most of them were hurt or terrible. Coronel was the only one who really worked out. So it hurt. And like I said, then you have the flip side of NYC that doesn't get a lot of players, but gets a ton of money. And that also makes things easy.
City Football Group is one of the richest teams. I mean, they're owned by the Prince of Qatar or something, or
I thought it was Saudi Arabia or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, they got money. So that was the question that this question came out of last.
Saudi Arabia is Newcastle now.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
One of the princes of Saudi Arabia. So
imagine having that much money. You're like, I'm just gonna go buy a football team
and just give them they have unlimited resources.
Right. We still almost got relegated. Unbelievable. So
they're a big club, Newcastle.
Oh yeah, they're massive, right? Who would you say was your best get from Bologna? Like, what was the best example of that partnership? Would you give?
I think Smiley is probably the best player we had. I mean, if we would have had him and Piatti together for a little bit longer, I don't think our playoff drought would have been 5 years. But again, he had kind of a bad attitude, and kind of looked down on MLS a little bit when he came here and wanted to go back. Tyler gave us some good football, but again, he was kind of a defensive liability and was terrible at taking free kicks, and he took all the free kicks. But again, like it could be, like I said, they could exploit them a little bit better, to get more players coming in, and maybe. But what we do, we'll send a lot of our young, promising players, or like Djordje, for example. They went to train with Bologna during the off season, which I think that actually helped Djordje Mihailovic a lot. He probably learned a lot of things training with them.
Sure. Yeah. What about outgoing? Who was like your best? Like you got them and you sent them over if you have anybody.
Well, we sent Louis Binks, like I was saying before. He was our best
Right.
defender, and he was just 19 years old the year that Henri was here. But who else would I send there? Is that kind of the question? Like, who
you could throw that in there.
I mean, I don't want to see Djordje go there again because we'll probably get nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe like a guy like Sunusi Ibrahim may end up there one day.
That's exactly who I was thinking. Yep.
I think he's going to be a star. I think
Yep.
maybe saying he's the next big African player is a overstatement, but I think he'll be, people will know his name worldwide in 5 years.
Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I watched him play. Just out of curiosity, I gotta bring this up for my friend Connor. If Louis Binks isn't, if you don't have this partnership with Bologna, does Louis Binks make a move to Europe?
I think we would have sold him. I mean, one of the big reasons he came here was the Henri factor,
Mm-hmm.
and I know when he came over, Mourinho tried to convince him to stay with Tottenham, but he wanted playing time, he wanted to play with men, so that's why he ended up coming here. And also Henri, they had the same agent and all that connection.
Right. Yeah. Now, Connor made this comment last week about the best example of the positive partnership between MLS and European clubs being Mix Diskerud.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my reaction.
No.
That was my reaction. You're out of your mind.
My argument was that NYC can use their link to Man City and tell players, oh, if you come here and you just play like half decent, you could get signed by Man City, because Mix Diskerud would have never been signed by Man City had he never played for NYC. Yeah. So that's why I go to that example.
He played with NYC 1 year? 2 years?
I think he played 1 or 2 years, but he also never actually signed for, like, he signed for Man City, but he played for City under 23s and then got loaned out to like 19.
He still got signed. He got into the Man City system.
He could have been cut by NYC, picked up on a free by any of those other teams, and played there consistently and gotten his move to Europe. Just a bad take. It's a
I remember that. We were kind of, I don't know. I remember it. We have I think CF Montreal might be the team that has the most podcasts dedicated to them. And I remember on one of them, they were talking about the mixed Diskerud thing, and they're kind of making fun of it.
Yeah, so was I. Don't worry. Yeah. I like to bring up Connor's bad takes every once in a while. So
I still stand by it, because
you can stand. Listen, just because you stand by it
I'm
doesn't
just
mean
saying,
it's a
you
good
put
take.
Mix Diskerud on like RSL. He's a career MLS player. He's never getting a move to Europe if he's playing for Real Salt Lake.
There's nothing wrong with being a career MLS player, though.
No, there's nothing wrong.
At all. Until Real Salt Lake lets his contract run out, and then he signs with a team in Cyprus anyway, which is where he is now. He doesn't need to play. Yeah, that's where he's at. He's in Cyprus. So he doesn't need to be a part of a team with a connection to make a move outside of MLS. It's a bad take. Anyways. So there was always this notion, and I never dove too much into it. The owners, the Saputos. What is the Saputo?
Yeah, Saputo.
Saputo with a T. Okay.
Yes, with a T.
I think I typed it with a D accidentally.
Yeah, you did. I fixed it in my notes.
Oh, my bad.
It's all good.
What is the vibe about them? I know that there was this rumor when I was doing a little bit of research that he was trying to move the team to the United, like he threatened to move them.
Yeah, it was a threat.
What was that all about?
Okay, here's the deal. Joyce Saputo loves his club. It's his baby. It's like his baby girl, right? And he used to be the president. He's not anymore. He's taking a step back, but he would get so emotional. He would make emotional decisions, emotional statements. He would fire people on a whim. Like they fired Jesse Marsh, which is probably the biggest mistake that this club has ever made. If you look at where he is now, I thought like we finished the season 3 points out of a playoff spot in our expansion year.
Yep.
What more do you want? But they had a clash of philosophy. He wanted to play maybe a bit more north-south, where they were looking to play a bit more of Italian counter-attacking style. That's what they envisioned. So he'd make emotional statements. I remember also when Piatti was up for contract negotiations, he just randomly showed up halftime on the halftime show, and he started talking about, well, instead of paying one guy 6 million players, it might be better to have 3 million guys, or 2 million guys, and just making statements like that. Then he took a step back. Kevin Gilmore came in. We all know what happened with him. And now with the new president, Gabriel Djordje, who's a legend at CF Montreal, he was also the vice president at Deloitte, which is like a big accounting firm in Canada, I think in the States as well. So now he's the new president, and he's really made it a point to get back to the roots of the club, get back to the history. And him and Saputo, he's been a lot more positive, not making rash emotional statements. He even showed up at the tailgate a couple of weeks ago to just chill with the fans.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, tasting the nachos, having some beer with them, just chatting, having a good time,
That's really neat. That's really neat.
I'm happy about that. And, they made it no secret. Some people say he's cheap, but there would be no professional football in Montreal without Joey Saputo. And they always said, if we're not against getting a third DP or a second DP, or like Bjorn Janssen is a DP for financial reasons, but they're not opposed to getting a third DP if the fit is right.
Right. He won't rush into a bad signing because of the name.
Unlike, I mean, no offense to Atlanta, but I find that they kind of just sign DPs just for the sake of signing DPs, and they don't necessarily look for the right guy. They've been looking to replace Al Moran since he left, and then they have not been able to.
Thiago Almada is probably the closest they've got, but when you sign somebody like South American Player of the Year, Pity Martinez, just because he's South American Player of the Year, Pity Martinez, it doesn't work. Ezekiel Barco, who is the most expensive signing in the league at the time, just for him to show up and have 4 goal contributions over the 3 years that he was there before he blew up.
Well, he had a good season last year. He had a great season last year.
So he ended well, but it took him 3 years to get going before he left. And then he was
a young guy, though. He came in at 19.
Yeah, he was very young. Yeah. But again, right, so and we had that conversation too, was he also wasn't the right fit for the league, right? If you come into the league and then your first instinct when you leave is to badmouth it, is that something that we need? So
P.T. Martinez? He badmouthed the league?
No. Ezekiel Barco. He was talking about how MLS was not a place where you can compete, kind of what we were talking about before, where the losing doesn't really matter. And then he went to River Plate, where he plays 4 good teams a year and the rest of them he can walk over. And we had that conversation, but same deal, right? Do we need those people? But I agree with you, right? Signing people based off a name doesn't work. You need to build a system, right? Red Bull did that for a long time, where we had 2 designated players, never filled the 3rd spot, only filled them with when one went out, the other came in type of thing. And it allowed us to create this identity. This is who we are. We're playing energy drink football. We're going to get it high. We're going to press you high. We're going to win it high. We're going to score. Right.
That's why you guys concede a lot at the end of the games.
Correct.
You just tire yourself out.
Yep. And like I said, then that allowed us to build an identity of, okay, we need to have strong one-on-one defenders for the end of these games. Sean Nealis comes in as a draft pick from Massapequa. I played with a buddy on my club team in high school back on Long Island, who played at Massapequa with Sean and Dylan Nealis. So watching him come in was like, oh, that's super neat. I thought he was awful year 1, but they allowed him to develop, right? Instead of saying, oh, I'm just going to go sign a DP and cut you loose, they allowed him to develop. He's a top 10 center back in the league this year, right? If you just go sign people, you don't find that. So completely agree with you there. Connor's going to take over these next 3, I think. So I'm just going to
Yeah,
interject.
he needs to talk a little bit more,
Yeah,
I think.
know. I've
Yeah.
been. This
I
is.
can't get a word in with this guy. Just
this
never
is-
shuts
that's-
up.
I will say that is my toxic trait. Is I just will speak football forever and ever, and somebody needs to mute me to stop me.
Yes.
You get
I
along
will
with my
gladly do
hockey
that.
podcast co-host.
Yeah, I gotta get a listen in. I've been meaning to sit down and get a listen to some of the Ranger stuff you're doing.
The second one is better. The second one's
Is it?
much
Okay,
better. Yeah.
I got to give it a listen because, like I said, I was working 3 a.m. to 11 a.m. these last couple of days, so my schedule's all messed
That's
up.
horrible.
So, yeah, it was tough, but I'm gonna this weekend I'm gonna sit down and catch up on my podcast. So I'm gonna throw that
Perfect.
one in.
I
for
can
sure.
give you guys my handles at the end of the show.
Oh,
Yeah, of
trust me,
course.
you got time for it.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
are
for
we
sure.
always like to give you that time. So
Perfect.
I'll let Connor go ahead and take this last little half here.
Yeah, thanks for finally letting me talk.
You're welcome.
What I was going to say is that I completely agree with your statement on Atlanta. I think that's spot on. I think a lot of Atlanta fans, at least the sensible ones, would agree with you as well because they seem to like to go for the big names at this point, even if they're not globally known big names. They're like, I mean, I heard about Barco and Almada prior to them coming into Atlanta, but I could tell you before they signed Josef Martinez and Miguel Almiron, I had never heard of them before, but they were fantastic for the system that they wanted to play. And that's why they were so successful. So I completely understand where you're coming from.
Martinez, I think he was a bench player at Torino before he came. Was that where he was?
Yep. Yeah.
And I think he had a couple of Serie A goals, but he came here to get playing time. And he's probably one of the best players in MLS history. He's might be the first guy to score 200 goals in MLS.
If he sticks around and is healthy.
Yeah, that's the
Hopefully he
problem,
is.
right?
Yeah. I don't see him going anywhere, but he's just got to hopefully stay healthy.
He loves Atlanta. It's its home now.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Complete side note. So, and last time I want to interject, I promise.
Yeah. Okay.
The guy that I worked with from school, as I mentioned, he's from Venezuela, which is where Josef Martinez grew up. He grew up with Josef, like playing in the streets with Josef and his brother.
That's super
So
cool.
when Atlanta came to Cincinnati, he actually made a trip up, got a signed jersey and everything. I didn't get a chance to go. I was coaching on the day, which is probably one of my bigger regrets. I would have loved to meet him and ask him a few podcast questions, but he asked him, he's like, man, like, are you making a move anytime soon? He basically told him, no, I love living here. It's a great place to be. Atlanta's awesome. Again, if somebody is going to pay me dumb money, then I got to think about it. But it looks like this is going to be his home for a while.
Do you think the turf might start in his career? Because he's got a couple of knee injuries now. That's one thing that bothers me about MLS. Too many teams play on turf.
Mm-hmm.
And like Portland, I know they have like some kind of like underground river situation under their stadium, which is why they can't have grass. But I heard that they're looking into putting in grass and kind of have like a better drainage system. But I mean, their turf's not a problem. They probably have one of the best turf fields in the world, I'd say. They replace it regularly. But that's one thing that kind of bothers me about the league is a lot of turf. And the sign says it doesn't make a difference for injuries, but it doesn't pass the eye test.
Correct.
All right. We got one last Montreal question, then we got a game, and then some rapid fire questions.
Should we do game last?
We can do game last.
Yeah.
So, in order for Montreal to win Supporter Shield, MLS Cup, or just to be successful in general for the remainder of the season, what are the key factors that need to happen for the team?
They need to shore up their defense, that's for sure. I mean, we've conceded like the second most goals in the league, but I think in 4 games, there's like 16 goals that have been conceded in 4 games alone. So those games have a bit more reasonable scores, then our goal differential will be better. And we're also one of the better teams in expected goals against. We should be a lot better defensively than what the stats show, I think. But it was a tough start of the season, so we got to shore up our defense. But part of that is goalkeeping. Our goalkeeping is really questionable. I don't understand why they haven't given James Pantemis a start yet this year, except for the Canadian Championship, but he wasn't I don't know what he did last year. Yeah, that was cool that Sebastian Breza scored a goal in penalty kicks to get us, to win the Canadian Championship last year, went all the way to goalkeepers, and he basically has been the starter ever since he scored that goal, which is like great, but like that's not his job. His job is not to score, And he made like if your goalkeeper is taking penalty kick against a CPL team, you got problems, But that I think they need to add. They need to add in the summer. I would like to see an improvement on Joaquin Torres, same type of player, but more DP level, because Joaquin Torres gives the ball away a lot, and he plays too much. He's better when he takes, when he's not always a starter. So I think they might need like a real attacking difference maker that can win the game with one touch of the ball. Djordje's not that, right? He's having a great season, but he's not the guy that's going to take over the game. I think we need something like that, and maybe a left wing back. That's what I think we need to add. And if they're able to, add one or two, then I really think we can make a serious run. But yeah, defense, playing their style, being able to adjust. That was a big problem last year. They played the same way without really adjusting throughout the season, and they were reluctant to make changes. But I think we have more depth this year, so that's the key. Use your depth, play your style, but be able to adjust and add a couple of pieces. That's I think the key to them this year, making it far. Because MLS Cup playoffs is 4 games, anybody could go on a 4-game winning streak, or even 3 if you win the division.
Yeah, I'm sure Andrew has some thoughts on MLS Cup.
I said I wouldn't get into it, but I will. I said I wouldn't run anymore. But
no.
I'm going to agree with you that Sebastian Brezin needs some time on the bench. He has
absolutely.
He shows some time, but Pantemis was fine. I don't know where
he's better foot to ball or ball to foot, and we like to build out of the back. Breza, he's made so many like questionable, like not that Pantemis didn't, but he's better ball to foot. I think Breza might be a bit of a better shot stopper, but and he's good at coming out. He controls the box well, but he makes some glaring mistakes that have cost him some games.
Yeah, I can speak for Sand for that one. I'm glad he was in goal against us. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, yeah, that was last. Yeah, that was a tough one. That was a tough one.
That was a rough one. All right,
but we kind of shored that up though. Like, but MLS is a league where a lot of goals are scored in the last 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's not just us that are like, oh no, I can't believe we conceded in stoppage time again. That happens multiple times a season to every team, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. Every team has their fair share of that. All right, we got some rapid fire questions here for you, all Montreal related. All right.
Shoot.
Who is your favorite player on the current roster?
I'd say Djordje Mihailovic, and I really like Mason Toye. I think he's gonna make a big difference when he comes back.
We wish Adam was here. Adam would love that.
Adam loves Mason Toye.
Yeah, and Kyoto's cool too, but he has a bit of a short fuse. But I like Kyoto. He doesn't necessarily need to score to be a difference maker. He can just attract attention, which is I think a big reason that Djordje has 7 goals this year, because Kyoto has been kind of attracting a lot of the attention.
Yeah.
So those are probably the guys I like the most.
Yeah. What about favorite player all time?
Nacho Piatti, for sure.
Yeah.
He was just spectacular to watch. And it's too bad we couldn't give him a team, right? We made playoffs 2 years of him, and the rest of the time, we're just horrible. And his last year were I forget the name of that dirty defender for Orlando stepped on his ankle and finished the season. I think we wouldn't have made the playoffs that year because they started off really strong, and then they kind of tailed off during the end of the year because Remy Gard didn't trust his bench. So yeah, Nacho Piatti, Patrice Bernier.
I love Patrice.
Yeah, he's in the media now, so it's good now. See him all the time.
What a guy!
Incredible.
He's
a great
a
player.
captain. He's a captain's captain, man. He's
for sure.
You run through a wall for that guy.
And I'll always remember that goal against TFC in the playoffs, tapping the crest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite soccer team outside of MLS?
Manchester United.
Oh,
For
yeah.
sure.
We
I've been
talked about
following
that,
them
Connor.
since like
Boo.
98, 99. I got into them because I started as a Canadian, as more of like an English Canadian, even though I'm technically French, but I live more in English, and I felt as a Canadian I should support England. So I was supporting England, and I think it was France 98. And then, there was Saturday morning soccer on TSN, which is like the ESPN up here. And like I was saying with you guys before we went on air, I believe that they would pretty much show three teams: United, Liverpool, and Arsenal. And I was watching United. I'm like, oh, Beckham plays there. Oh, Scholes plays there. All these, English national team players play for them. So that's how I got into United. And the 99 Champions League final really solidified my love for them. Epic game.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right. Who's your favorite team for Montreal to beat?
Toronto. Red Bull, I have to say.
Nice.
And New England, just because of the Montreal Boston kind of rivalry.
Sure.
And I really dislike Columbus as well, but I don't know, they're kind of not. I think they might sneak in, but they're not looking too good this year.
True. They do have to turn things around over there.
I mean, TFC is the easy answer, but I think Red Bull is one of our bigger rivals. I don't know if you agree with that, but
that feels a little more one way. I think simply for location wise, right? We got DC from history, cities right next door.
Yeah, Philly.
Like I said,
New York is always.
Yeah, Toronto and Atlanta are a bit bigger just for the playoff history.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got like Philly, who's starting to get up there simply because we can't beat them anymore. Yeah. So I'm sure that it's not like we like playing you guys, but I wouldn't say on our end it's like a proper rivalry.
I might be alone on that one though. When it comes to Red Bull, like I remember I put out like a survey on Twitter a couple of years ago saying who's our second biggest rival. I had New England, Red Bulls, and Columbus.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Because Columbus also a bit of playoff history as well, and like there's been some crazy games against them as well too.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Cool.
All right. If you could have one player in the entire world play for Montreal right now, who would it be?
Oh boy. Present, past, and
present.
Active player.
Yeah.
As much as I hate Manchester City, Kevin De Bruyne, maybe.
Nice.
Yeah, or Bruno Fernandes.
That's a good one too. Both of those guys would torch this league.
No,
I mean, I don't know.
They get 30-30.
Yeah, probably.
You would have to wait for Djordje to leave. Why would you sign Bruno Fernandes to ride the bench behind Djordje Mihailovic? That doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a like hypothetical question, right?
Right.
I mean,
you just play them together, Andrew. You don't have to bench one of them.
You can. Yeah, like we're kind of playing with 2 10s right now with Mihailovic and Torres.
I guess, but I mean, I guess I still would love the scenes for the day that Bruno Fernandes gets signed somewhere and sits behind some American guy. Bro, Twitter would explode.
Yeah, because he didn't have a great season this year.
No,
it wasn't great.
Yeah,
not
Twitter
like the year before.
Nice.
All right, last one here. One player, they don't have to be on the team anymore, but one player you would never want to see in a Montreal kit ever again.
Matteo Mancosu. Yeah, he was great for us in the play. Series ago, he was preseason. The guy went to score 20 goals this year. He scored 4. He scored the first goal of the season, and then he didn't score for months. Maxi Ruti, no thank you either. He was expecting to play with Piatti and I already forget his name.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
and-
He played here for like a half a season, then moved back to Argentina.
Yeah, no, he moved to Paraguay.
Yes,
Back to
yes.
Paraguay.
Oh man, what's his name? All right, I'm googling. This is gonna bother me.
Jesus.
You keep going. I'm gonna Google.
Silva, Alejandro Silva.
Yes,
He would have
Ali
been
Silva.
great.
Yes,
He would-
thank you.
He would have been great. I think he was gonna destroy the league the
Oh
next year
man, he was so
if he
hyped.
would have stayed. But the thing he's like losing is not a big deal here, and that really bothered him.
Right.
And I think he would have helped the next year, especially if Piatti missed the whole season. So that's, yeah.
Yep.
But no, I wouldn't want to see Mancosu ever again. He's in Series C now, I believe.
That's awesome.
All right, last segment we have here, a game we like to play with all of our guests. We call it Who Am I? Basically, we got 5 hints, and you have to guess who the player is. All of the players have been on a Montreal roster from 2015 or later. So from 2015 to current, they would have been on the roster. So if you get it on the first hint, you get 5 points, and then each additional hint that you get drops it 1 more point. And I will say, Andrew and I ran through this before the show started, and they can be a little tough, but hopefully we can get there. So the first player, the first hint, my sister played for the University of New Mexico.
That was my reaction when he gave me that too.
Got to be a hard one for the first one. I can't make it
For
easy.
2015 and later. So he's obviously an American, I think. Is it Evan Bush?
It is not Evan Bush.
It's a good one.
All right, the next one. I've made 121 MLS appearances in my career. This includes all teams, not just Montreal.
Yeah. Can you tell me what position you played?
Nope.
No, huh?
Just the hint.
Okay, so sister played for University of New Mexico. Had 121 MLS appearances.
Yep.
Oh man, he's American, I guess. Wow, man. I'm gonna need another hint.
Okay. I scored my first senior international goal on January 27th, 2019 against Panama.
Oh man.
You'll definitely get it from the next hit for sure.
Yeah, I think. Oh, what the hell? Yeah, I have no idea. And you're gonna say it, or I'm gonna get it and be like, of course. I'm like, I'm just trying to think of like. It wasn't Justin Mapp because he was here later than. No, he wasn't in the Champions League in 2015. Is it Justin Mapp?
Nope, not Justin Mapp.
It's a good one too.
Next hint. I am currently rumored with a move to Europe.
It's Djordje Mihailovic?
Yep, it's Djordje.
Wait, hold on a sec.
Yeah.
My keys?
No, you're right.
You're good. Yep, so that one was Djordje. Last hint for that one was I was traded from the Chicago Fire.
Yeah, he scored. Yeah, he scored his one and only U.S. men's national team goal. Yeah, I should have gotten on that one. But I was thinking maybe a little bit further back,
Yeah, I got that on a blind guess. He gave me that sister one, and I was like, Djordje, and he's like, yep. I'm like, come on.
So is it Djordje or is it Djordje?
I've heard both.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
So
it's Djordje or something like that.
Yeah, like the proper pronunciation is something nobody ever actually uses.
No, like if you look up his name, he's got like all these like weird accent and like like Slavic letters and stuff.
Yep.
Djordje, man, I should have got that quicker. I should have got that with the men's national team one.
Well, you had it on the right track. You got the American part pretty quickly. So that was pretty good. All right, on to the next one. First hint. I have played in the UEFA Champions League.
Victor Wanyama.
That was my first guess
That
too.
was-
We
yeah,
are
that
on the
was
same
his too.
wavelength.
It is not Victor Wanyama.
Oh, Boyan.
Nope.
Not Bojan.
But he
Not
did.
Boyan.
He did.
Yeah.
but it's
And
not
he
Bojan.
won. He won it. He has a Champions League title.
Not many NMLS can say that. That's for sure.
Didier
Uh,
Drogba?
Nope, not
No.
Drogba. Next hint
Oh,
is
okay.
my first career goal was scored on a team in the second division of France.
That's a good one, huh? Second division of France. Is this Saphir Titer?
Nope.
That's a good guess.
Man. I'm not doing very well here.
These
All
are
right,
so
these
these
are
are
These are tough.
absurdly difficult. Like,
Yeah.
like when we did this like last season, these questions were much easier in the beginning. Connor was like, "We're making this thing impossible."
Well, everybody was
Oh,
guessing
in
it
the
first.
French second division. Saint-Piet?
No,
No.
No. Next one. Next question.
right.
Next
I've
hint.
made 5 appearances for the French national team.
Who do we have that played for France? Ever? Wow.
I had no idea this guy played for France before looking it up.
Is it a guy that never actually played for CF Montreal but was supposed to come and then missed the plane?
No, he actually played.
Okay. So it's not Jimmy Briand.
No.
CF Montreal Impact legend. French national team. Jesus. Next hint. Or is that
Okay.
the last one?
Nope, we still got 2 more. I have played for Marseille, Nice, and Charlton Athletic.
Marseille, Nice, and Charleston Athletic. Whew. Oh, Rod Fanny.
Yep, Rod Fanny. Believe it or not,
Okay.
Rod Fanny had a 3-minute stint in the UEFA Champions League when he was
Only
in France.
3 minutes?
Only 3 minutes. Yeah.
He was like a mainstay in Marseille though.
It was with RC Lens that he played in the Champions League. I had no idea
It
they would
wasn't
do
even
that.
of Marseille. Wow. I guess
Yeah.
Marseille's been up and down.
Maybe I had it wrong, but maybe he did play with them in Marseille, but
I think he did.
all right, we
I
got
think he did.
one more left, one player left. First hint. I began my senior career in Germany.
Saint-Piet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice. That was a good one.
5 points.
that's 5
Yep.
points. So what we finished with 9 on 3. That's
Yes.
pretty good.
Yeah.
These were tough, so it was pretty good.
For the way that Connor phrased these, that's very, very good.
Nice. Well, I'm glad
All right.
I did all right.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. That was really, really good. I've got nothing left. Connor, you got anything else you want to talk about?
No, I got
No,
nothing
that's
left.
about it. I can't thank you enough, Patrick, for coming on the show today and
It's
chatting
been my
CF
pleasure.
Montreal. We have talked, like I said, we talked for a while about getting this done, but this was anything that way past expectations. You did everything that we asked and more for giving information and giving a really great insight on CF Montreal and the way things work there. We really, really appreciate you coming on. Like we mentioned, we always give our guests a little space right at the end of the show to plug social medias for themselves,
Yeah.
their own podcasts, anything like that. So take it away. Go ahead, share wherever you are so we can get people to find you.
Perfect. Well, most of my CF Montreal commentary on Twitter is through my personal page, which is P_Dubs13. So PDubs13. You can follow me there. And my hockey podcast called the Face Off Hockey Podcast. You could follow us on Twitter sorry, I don't know the handle for some reason.
It's brand
Um,
new, so
Yeah, it's brand new. Is like we only have 2 episodes and 1 quick hit. So you can follow us at Face Off Hockey P1 all together. And on YouTube, the Face Off Hockey Podcast. We're the only one named that, surprisingly. Yeah, where we talk about, mostly cover Montreal Canadiens, New York Rangers, and right now we're full playoffs.
yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
Like and follow for sure.
Absolutely, guys, go over there and check it out. You know, if you guys are looking for really great CF Montreal commentary and takes, Patrick's a great guy to follow. He, like I said, anytime we post something, he's always, first off, he's always the first one to interact with it, and secondly, he's always the first one to correct us whenever we're wrong, which is great because we are wrong way more than we like to be. But we always appreciate you and all of your interactions. Thank you so much again.
Man, a lot of fun. I've always wanted to talk about CF Montreal on a podcast before, and you guys gave me an opportunity. So really appreciative of that, guys.
Absolutely. What we'll have to do is, if we get back into streaming at some point, which we're hoping to do,
like watch along,
like a watch along thing. Yeah, we'll have to get one for like a Montreal Atlanta or a Montreal Red Bull and bring you on.
I'd be down.
We can get that done. You know, that's the next step we'd like to take as a podcast, is having guests during our watch alongs, which I think would be really fun.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much again for coming on, guys. We hope you enjoyed episode 32 of season 3 of the Designated Players podcast. Make sure you're following us on all forms of our social media so you can know when our clips go live, or when we like to share silly takes about things like Connor's mixed Discord talk. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Just search the Designated Players podcast. You can find us, and then follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you know when we drop this episode and all other episodes. We will see you next time on the next episode of the Designated Players podcast. See ya.